I've always been the responsible child in my family. While my older sister Amber married wealthy and had 3 kids by 30, I took the long road, working through college, building a career in finance, and living modestly while paying off my student loans. My parents seemed proud of my independence, even if they didn't always express it. Growing up, Amber was always the golden child. She was prettier, more outgoing, and frankly, better at manipulating our parents. I never begrudged her for it. We have different personalities, and I found my own path. But what happened last month crossed a line I couldn't ignore. For years, I'd been saving to take my parents on a trip to Hawaii. They're getting older, and Dad's health hasn't been great. When I finally had enough money, I called to invite them, explaining I'd cover everything: flights, hotel, activities, the works. "Oh, honey, that's so thoughtful," Mom said, her voice hesitant. "But we really can't afford to take time off right now. Your father's medical bills have been piling up, and we're helping Amber with the kids' private school tuition." I understood. Times were tough for everyone, and they'd always helped us both when they could. I was disappointed, but told them I'd keep the offer open. 3 weeks later, I was upgraded to first class on a business trip to San Francisco, a perk of having airline status. As I settled into my seat, I heard familiar giggles from across the aisle. There, in the first-class cabin, were my sister's 3 kids with my parents, all laughing and clinking their pre-takeoff orange juices. My heart dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My nephew spotted me first. "Auntie, you're on our vacation too?" he shouted excitedly. The look on my parents' faces when they saw me, I'll never forget it. Shock, guilt, and then awkward smiles as they explained they were taking the kids to Disneyland while Amber and her husband were on an adults-only trip to Cabo. "It was a last-minute thing," Mom stammered. "Amber needed childcare, and you know how we love spending time with the grandkids." I nodded, smiled politely, and excused myself to the bathroom where I locked the door and cried silently. They couldn't afford time off for a trip I was fully funding, but they could fly first class to babysit my sister's kids while she vacationed. When I returned to my seat, I didn't confront them. I chatted pleasantly with my niece and nephews, asked about their excitement for Disneyland, and even took a family photo for them. My parents seemed relieved that I wasn't making a scene, but inside, something had shifted. The years of being the understanding, independent child who never complained, that person was gone. I wasn't going to yell or cause drama. That's not my style. But I was done being taken for granted. They had no idea what was coming next. When I returned home from my business trip, I spent days replaying that moment on the plane. It wasn't about the vacation itself. It was about the years of imbalance. I'd kept a mental ledger of all the times my parents had chosen Amber, the college fund that mysteriously dried up before I enrolled, the family heirlooms that all went to her, the way they dropped everything for her emergencies while mine were met with, "You're so capable. We know you'll figure it out." I didn't want revenge. I wanted equity. And sometimes, the only way to get equity is to force a reckoning. First, I called my financial advisor. For the past 8 years, I'd been quietly setting aside money to help my parents in their retirement. They didn't know about this fund. It was my way of ensuring they'd be comfortable when the time came. The account had grown to just over $180,000. "I'd like to reallocate these funds," I told him. "Can we split it into 3 separate accounts?" Next, I contacted my lawyer. I had been named as the executor of my parents' will and held their medical power of attorney, a practical choice given my financial background and proximity. I lived 20 minutes away, while Amber was in another state. We revised the paperwork, removing me from these positions. Then, I made one more call, to Uncle Robert, my father's brother. They'd had a falling out 15 years ago over my grandfather's estate. Dad claimed Robert had taken advantage of Grandpa's dementia to secure a larger inheritance. But I'd always suspected there was more to the story. "I've been thinking about Grandpa's inheritance situation," I said carefully. Uncle Robert was silent for a moment. "What made you bring this up after all these years?" I explained what had happened and how it had made me question other family narratives. Robert sighed deeply. "Your father accused me of manipulating Dad, but the truth is, your grandfather specifically requested that his estate be divided equally between all his grandchildren. Your father wanted your sister to receive a larger portion because she was struggling financially at the time. When I refused to go along with it, he cut me off." This revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Uncle Robert sent documentation proving his story, letters from my grandfather, the original will, everything. The narrative I'd accepted my entire life was a fabrication. A week after the plane incident, I invited my parents over for dinner. I prepared all their favorites: Dad's beloved pot roast, Mom's favorite lemon cake. When they arrived, they seemed nervous, likely expecting a confrontation about the Disney trip. Instead, I was the perfect host. We ate, reminisced, and laughed. As we finished dessert, I handed them an envelope. "What's this?" Mom asked, opening it to find 3 printed bank statements. I've been saving for your retirement, I explained. I've divided it into 3 accounts. One for you, one for Amber, and one for me. That's incredibly generous, Dad said, looking confused by my kindness after what had happened. I also met with my lawyer this week. I continued calmly. I've removed myself as executor of your will and relinquished medical power of attorney. I think those responsibilities should fall to Amber since she's clearly the priority. Their faces began to fall as they realized this wasn't just about forgiveness. Oh, and I had the most interesting conversation with Uncle Robert. The color drained from my father's face at the mention of Uncle Robert. You spoke to Robert? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do that? Because I wanted the truth, I replied, placing the documents Uncle Robert had sent me on the table. About Grandpa's will. About how the inheritance was supposed to be divided equally among all grandchildren. About how you wanted to favor Amber. My mother reached for my father's hand. Honey, you don't understand. Your sister needed. I know what you think she needed, I interrupted, my voice still calm. What I don't understand is why you felt the need to lie about it. To me. To Uncle Robert. To everyone. I pushed my chair back from the table and walked to the window, gathering my thoughts before continuing. For years, I told myself it was okay to be treated differently. I was the strong one, the independent one. I didn't need the help or attention that Amber did. But that was a lie I told myself to ease the pain of knowing I was less important to you. That's not true, my mother protested, tears welling in her eyes. We love you both equally. I turned back to face them. Love isn't just a feeling, Mom. It's demonstrated through actions. And your actions have consistently shown who matters more. My father tried to interject, but I raised my hand to stop him. I'm not looking for apologies or explanations. I'm setting boundaries. From now on, I'll be treating our relationship with the same priority level you've given it. I handed them another envelope, this one containing an invoice. What is this? My father asked, opening it. That's for the down payment I helped you with on your condo 5 years ago. The one you promised to pay back, then somehow forgot about when Amber needed money for her kitchen renovation. I've added a reasonable interest rate. Their faces crumpled as the reality of what was happening sank in. You can't be serious, my mother whispered. I've never been more serious. You taught me that family helps family, but apparently that only applies when Amber is involved. So I'm removing myself from that equation. And what about your nieces and nephews? My father demanded, finding his voice again. Are you punishing them too? Not at all. I've set up college funds for each of them, I said. They'll receive the money when they turn 18, regardless of our relationship. They're innocent in all this. By now, both my parents were openly crying. Not the reaction they expected from their dinner invitation. This isn't about revenge, I explained, softening my tone slightly. It's about respect. I respect myself too much to continue pretending this dynamic is okay. As they left that night, shoulders slumped in defeat, I felt no joy in their distress. Only a quiet resolution that had been years in the making. The following Sunday was the first family dinner I ever missed. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Amber, demanding to know why I was hurting our parents. I didn't respond. 3 weeks later, Uncle Robert invited me to lunch. We talked for hours, sharing stories about Grandpa that I'd never heard. At the end, he handed me a small box. Your grandfather wanted you to have this, he said. I've been holding on to it, waiting for the right time. Inside was my grandfather's pocket watch and a note. For my granddaughter who understands that true wealth is measured in integrity, not dollars. 6 months have passed. My parents have made awkward attempts at reconciliation, but they still don't truly understand what went wrong. Amber hasn't spoken to me since I declined to contribute to her children's private school fundraiser. I'm at peace with my decision. Sometimes, the only way people recognize your worth is when you stop providing it for free. As for that Hawaii trip, I went anyway, with Uncle Robert and his wife. We scattered some of Grandpa's ashes over the ocean at sunset. It was the perfect family vacation.